Oh, yeah. When we get those first rankings, we know it's go time, or almost go time. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We get together Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, but more on that in just a few minutes. We will clarify what the plan is going forward here at the Voice of College Football. It's the college football show. It will forever be the college football show as long as we are here with you. Appreciate everyone jumping into the chat. We have left the call-in line there. Please give me a ring if you have anything on your mind concerning college football. It does not have to be about the preseason coaches poll, because we are soon to find out that that's fairly irrelevant. Well, technically, it's completely irrelevant. But how close has that preseason poll, and we'll see the AP version of it next week, how close is it to the final version of the top 10 or the top 25? We will look into that, and maybe there's a video on the horizon. I know that I posted one at this point last season when the AP top 25 preseason poll came out and exposed the dart throwing nature of the process. Dart throwing at the wall, just about 12 or 13 missed out of 25. So we will check that out. And again, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. I was having dinner with a friend last night. He brought up the Amazon link. This guy, I tell you, my best buddy, he is out there promoting the Amazon link like nobody's business. Every time somebody's name's brought up at dinner or when we're out, somebody that I don't even know, he'll say, let's get them the Amazon link. Are they using the Amazon link? Honey, are they using the Amazon link? It's the most important thing I say here. The most important statement made for the entire show will be, please use the Amazon links. It's in the description section of this video and all the videos here at the Voice of College Football, because it's the same shopping experience that you already experience, but you don't send all your money to Amazon. You contribute here to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. It's the only way you can do that. I see Doreen in the chat. Always appreciate her support. She and Minnie Hunt, of course, on Sunday nights here, the ladies of college football. That's at 9 Eastern every Sunday night here at the Voice of College Football. Let's check out those coaches poll rankings. And also, we may dive into some SEC training camp notes, possibly, that I am thankful to get gathered up for me each and every day, Monday through Friday, courtesy a number of SEC outlets that put those together and then send them my way and to, I'm sure, hundreds of others across the nation. But it puts a nice little collection of notes together on the SEC each and every day, and they start to become meaningful this time of year. So we should receive some news out of training camp here in the next few days. We've received basically nothing. And if you've seen anything out there, I mean of note, I mean something that is legit, not so-and-so looks good, so-and-so looks good, he looks a little bigger, he looks a little slender. Fine, that's fine. But I mean anything of magnitude, anything actually substantial will probably take a little bit more time, because most of these teams just went to training camp around Thursday or Friday of last week for the first day. And unfortunately, the first news we're going to get out of training camp that's probably going to be substantial is going to be an injury. And then there's going to be a second one and a third one and a fourth one, and there's going to be injuries here in the next few weeks. So, of course, the goal is to come out of training camp unscathed. Let's get to the coaches poll. And another note on training camp across the country for me would be that I cannot think of a year. I cannot think of one year. You're going to have to come up with it for me. I cannot think of a year where there have been more quarterback battles among elite teams. Just look at the coaches poll right there and look at what are supposed to be the best teams in the country. Texas, new quarterback, not a quarterback battle there. I should rephrase that, where there's going to be a new quarterback with no experience, basically no experience. Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Alabama. So that's half the top 10 plus. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 8 teams in the nation. 6 of the top 8 teams in the nation will have inexperienced quarterbacks. And then we get some experience with LSU and Garrett Nussmeier, Miami, Carson Beck, Sam Levitt at Arizona State, Luke Altmaier at Illinois, Lenoris Sellers of South Carolina. So the next 5 line up with experienced quarterbacks who have proven something. So if you're looking for maybe a factor here that could send some teams ranked near the top to maybe drop a little further than anticipated, and maybe some second-tier teams to rise. Look at that. 6 of the top 8 teams in the country, brand new starting quarterbacks with no experience. Not that they won't succeed, but not all of them will succeed. I'm going to make that guarantee. Out of those 6, not all of them will succeed. And then the next 5 teams in line all have proven excellent starting quarterbacks. All right. Before I proceed, Tukey G's here. Always good to see Tukey G, the aforementioned Doreen. And again, she and Minnie hunt on Sunday nights. Be here for that. And what that is, folks, is so Sunday night, we've got the Ladies of College Football, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Minnie and Doreen. You can join them if you're a member, and we're still looking to continue our tradition of the College Football After Dark show, but we're looking for a host or 2. So let us know if you have any suitable hosts for us for the College Football After Dark show to continue that. I Bleed Orange is wondering why Tennessee is not a top 10 team, because we've got a top 10 roster. And you've got a quarterback who threw 14 interceptions in the Sun Belt Conference last year. That could be part of it. And you lost 3/4 of your defensive line that was exceptional, all going to the NFL draft. You lost all of your skill position players. You lost the single season rushing leader in the history of the school, Dylan Sampson. You lost all your best wide receivers, Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, on down the line, and have not replaced them with anyone proven. That would be my answer to that question. Ohio State at 2. Dash letting us know that preseason polls are worthless, but they're fun. They are worthless. Now, how much impact these preseason polls from the AP and the coaches poll have on the College Football Playoff Committee, somebody can conjecture. We could look at it. We could go to the first College Football Playoff poll, which is not a poll, it's a ranking by the committee. The first playoff committee ranking each year, which used to be in October. I think they've moved it to November. They moved it back a little bit. And then try to make some determination versus what the AP and the coaches poll looks like to see if we believe that they're being impacted. But for anybody out there that says that the coaches poll or the AP poll influences the playoff rankings, you can't say that. I can't say it, or I can't discount it. I don't know. Nobody knows. It would be virtually impossible to make that declaration and prove it or give it much evidence. So is it worthless? The preseason polls, are they worthless? Technically, yes. They are worthless. They don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. However, let me look for an example here. Okay. Georgia won its first game last year, 31-3. Okay. Georgia won 31-3 in its first game last year. If they were playing UAB would have started that game unranked, and they would have finished that game unranked. But they were playing Clemson. And we could go back, and we will here in just a second, to see what was Clemson ranked preseason, and then what were they ranked after losing to Georgia 31-3. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy to a certain extent. Obviously, you could be number 5 in the country to start the season and go 1-6, and you're not going to be ranked. So it's not a completely self-fulfilling prophecy, but it is to a certain extent. And before we go further in the poll, since we've got a couple calls here, we will take those. Caden's here. Caden, what's going on today?
Good evening or good afternoon, Mark. How are you doing?
I am doing just fine. How are you?
The same old shtick, same old day for me, honestly. But
All right.
I know a lot of your fans are going to hate my guts, so I'm going to make this simple as possible. I wanted to also I wanted to point out the conversation Burks had with you last week. Now, Burks made it perfectly clear, and I 100% agree with Burks on everything about John DeMoe. And you know what, Mark, I honestly cannot stand John DeMoe's guts.
Okay,
I cannot stand
the
his
man's name correctly first. John D'Adamo. Okay, John. You can just refer to him as John since you can't pronounce his last name. All right. You can't stand his guts. Why?
That guy spews the most absolute nonsense about Michigan, and he claims that they're going to do these things. Like they're not going to get the hammer dropped on him with all the charges. When I've told him specifically multiple times on multiple occasions that Michigan is going to get found guilty and the hammer is going to drop down on him, losing the games, losing the national championship that they won. And then, with all the cheating shenanigans in Michigan, I pointed that to him. Yet he doesn't have the guts to admit that I came on there with a set of cojones to tell him. And yet he boos me off the show like I'm trying to tell him some BS when I actually spit the truth to him. I mean, what kind of character?
That's enough. That's my turn. Okay. All right. Number one, John does an excellent job for us here at the Voice of College Football, and has for quite some time. None of us are going to agree with each other all the time, and that's the beauty of sports and sports debate. Okay. So you made the statement that he says that Michigan is not going to get the hammer dropped on them. So the first thing I would point out, Caden, is I don't know that you're going to find any Michigan supporter that believes that, number one. So it's not just him. There's a tendency to be biased in these situations, me included. Okay. So we're not going to generally find Michigan commentators that are going to believe that their program is going to get the hammer. However, it also sounds from the conversation that you just depicted that you didn't necessarily go on there stating facts or some type of case. It sounds like you just said, you're going to get the hammer, you're going to get the hammer, you're going to get the hammer. So I don't know that there was an exchange of facts and reason and logic about the case to try to come to some kind of conclusion as to where it's going to fall at the end.
I've been also, Mark. I've been following the OSU, the Michigan cheating scandal, or the cheating shenanigans at Michigan, and I pointed those facts out clearly stated. I've done my research on this, and I'm going to say this completely honest, but there's one thing I dang sure know is November 29th, Michigan is going to have an all-paid expenses one-way trip on the highway to hell, and that's for damn sure.
Okay.
And Jeremiah Smith.
Okay, one more time, Caden. See, you made a statement somewhere in there about credibility. And you have to understand, when you don't have credibility, it's difficult to knock somebody else's credibility.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, Mark, and I was just going to let.
Yes. Caden, I appreciate your calls. I appreciate that you're a enormous Ohio State football fan. I appreciate your passion, but I am also dealing with somebody here who has on a routine basis spewed nonsense here endlessly. So, Caden,
And let me guess.
you seem like a great guy in some respects, but you spew
hold on, Mark. Hold on.
nonsense all the time for whatever purpose. I don't know. I don't know if you truly believe these things, like Ohio State's going to beat everyone by 50 points, that they're going to sack Arch Manning 16 times. I don't know if you truly believe these things, but they're nonsense. And then they prove to be nonsense. So I did not hear your exchange with John, but I can only imagine what that exchange was like, because I know John to be a sharp individual, number one. Extremely intelligent guy.
Intelligent.
Huge Michigan fan.
I find that to be a little
enormous Michigan fan who does his best to put that to the side. None of us can entirely. He's pro-Michigan, but to give it a reasonable look. And you cannot just simply say that Michigan is going to get the hammer and it doesn't manifest itself. You have to have some level of, that's why I've sat here and said, I don't know what the result of this case is going to be, but I've stated many times, I do not believe, based on the evidence that I've put on either side of this, pro-Michigan, anti-Michigan, that they will get the hammer. I do not believe that's going to happen. If it does, I'm not going to be shocked beyond belief, but I will be slightly surprised. But I have not definitively said, this is what's going to happen. They're going to get the hammer, or they're going to get off scot-free. I have made no declaration like that, because I think to do so, to make a declaration to say for sure this is what's going to happen, is foolish, just like your final statement about Michigan getting their butts kicked on November 29th is a completely irrational and idiotic take, because you have no freaking idea what's going to happen in that football game, because all I've heard you do is make football predictions on here, and they've all been wrong.
And you know what, Mark? I'll give you the credit of two things. Number one, you actually have the set of cojones to call me out on a daily basis. And number two, supporting idiots like John, that just really makes me pissed off more. And here's the other thing. John, I'm going to tell this to you, and I want you to listen loud and clear.
Okay, Caden, we're
Thursday night.
Whoa, hang on just a second. We're going to give you all the time you want to respond, because we have John here. Would you guys like to just say it direct, so I don't have to try to mediate? And let's act like class individuals. I'm speaking to you, Caden. Let's please act, just calm yourself down and just address the situation and the previous conversation. So we'll bring John on here. Hey, John, good to see you.
Always great to be here, Mark.
So let me separate you two. There we go. So Caden has something to say, and so we'll allow Caden to start. Go right ahead, Caden.
John, can I be honest with you about some things?
Sure.
Your comments about Michigan, in my opinion, are a little horrendous.
Okay. Like what?
Oh, for example, like how you told your fans last week, like you definitely 100% accurately know the hammer is not going to get dropped on your favorite beloved program that wears a maize and blue uniform. Are you really 100% certain about that? Because I guarantee you, with all the evidence that's been presented against Michigan, and I've said this to you on multiple occasions, You know deep down inside of you that is going to happen. It's just you won't admit it. Because I've said it, like I said again, I've said it on multiple occasions. Yet you block me. You ignore me. You think I'm telling you a prophecy that will not be fulfilled. Yet I'm telling you to be warned of what's coming. And I said this to Mark again. There's one other thing I danged you know. The other thing was Jeremiah Smith's comment wishing death upon Michigan. Yeah, you know what? I'll give the man credit for that. And the other thing is November 29th, Michigan has a one-way ticket, all paid expenses on the highway to hell. And I dang sure know that deep in my heart.
Okay. So let's begin with this. I am not on the NCAA committee on infractions. Do we agree upon that?
I'll only agree with you this time.
Oh, okay. I am not. I could attest to that. And because of that, I cannot definitively say exactly what's going to happen. All TJ and I are doing is projecting, right? It's called making an educated guess based on the information that we have from news sources, message boards, and our own sources internally and externally in the program. I don't know if you've noticed that we've been conducting interviews on a monthly basis with people in the program, with players, with recruits, with commits, with all of that. So we do not know definitively. Let me be very clear. All we know is an educated guess that we're thinking it's going to be a big fine, probably 8-figure fine. We're thinking that Sharon Moore is going to get some type of suspension between 2 to 4 games. We're thinking that there will be some type of recruiting restriction, suspended scholarships, probation. And we're thinking that Jim Harbaugh is going to get a lifetime ban or a significant ban from college football. Because at the end of the day, the whole case is on the lack of institutional control, allegedly, that Jim Harbaugh had. Well, guess what? If the NCAA wants to give Jim Harbaugh a lifetime ban from college football, I'm sure he'd be okay with that, because I think he's doing all right for himself. So those are kind of the main ones. Maybe some show causes for Partridge, some show causes for Connor Stallions, especially. What about that is horrendous or unfair, or what about that is unreasonable?
And I think I think you know what I mean. Last week I heard your little conversation with Burks, and let me just be first of all clear: we're not friends. I told him he can go F himself.
Okay. Okay.
Because both of us can't agree on things, but there's some things on terms that we can agree on. And I heard your little conversation about Connor Stallions, about how he's the savior at Michigan. That is horrendous.
Never said that word.
No, it's all your fans that say it, and it's horrendous. It's like you feel like Connor Stallions shouldn't be guilty.
Well, Keith,
of every scandal.
Careful. Let's be a little bit more careful with your words, because a split second before you said it was John and the Michigan fans on the show, you said John stated that. So that was incorrect. Yeah. But also, John just made a statement about the process that they've gone through, the research they've done, the thought process, and then the conclusions that they've come to that are the essence of your entire argument here, or your entire issue with this. Now, would you respond to what John said concerning where they have placed their expectations on the conclusion of this case?
And why? And here's the other thing, Mark. Why do I even need to respond when I've just already made it perfectly crystal clear to anybody? Yet they can't get it through their thick skulls when I said it once and I had to say it twice.
Well, then we're not having really a discussion. We're having a let's call John out for saying there's not going to be a hammer. And then when I literally lay out the case and the educated guess that we're making, you're just going to completely speed past the entire content of what I just laid out.
And why am I even arguing with a guy like John? Oh, my freaking Lord. Oh, my Lord.
You
John,
called me out, and I
hold
called
on. Let me just say this.
We're straying into the absurd now. So do one of two things, Caden. You've got two options. You can either respond to John's statement about the conclusions that he and TJ have made concerning the NCAA case, or you can state what you believe will be the conclusion of the case. What do you think the penalties, fines, and so forth will be? Do one of the other, or I don't know.
I'll tell you what
continue in a productive way.
I'll tell you what the case is going to be. Jim Harbaugh gets a lifetime suspension from college football permanently.
Agree.
Michigan loses all the 40 wins and the national championship.
Disagree. Okay.
And I hope you got the national championship down for Michigan. Sharon Moore gets suspended 5+ games. Connor Stallions and whoever else on that staff gets suspended.
Agree.
And even fired.
Stallions is already gone, but you mean a show cause? Which we predict Stallions is going to get a show cause.
I just basically said that, yes.
Okay. Well, that's different from being he already has departed the program. But okay. So out of that, we're in agreement on point one. We are in disagreement on vacated wins and title, because from all the evidence we have, it doesn't look like that's on the cards. And that's not just my opinion. You look at what Chris Ballas has put out there on 3. You look at what Isaiah Holes put out there, Wolverine's Wire. You look at what Maize and Blue Review has put out there. You look at every legitimate source, 247. All of them are in agreement that vacated wins and title doesn't seem to be part of the conversation, and that the Committee on Infractions meeting went positively, they felt. So I don't know how that correlates to a vacated title, especially when do you remember when the president of the NCAA said Michigan won the title fair and square? Now, I concede that's non-binding. That's a non-binding statement, but don't you think that reflects something there?
In my honest opinion, if you want me to be honest with you, John, I do not. You can disagree with me, but I don't care.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so we agree on all points, but we have a huge disagreement on what would mean most to Michigan fans and college football fans: vacated wins and a championship, which I do not believe are going to be taken away from Michigan. And I got to tell you, to be completely honest, if they were, part of me, half of me approximately, would be happy and overjoyed and say that's what they get. But half of me would say, based on all evidence, that would be the Ohio State fan in me. The rest of me would basically come to the conclusion that, based on what I know of all of this, and I am not an expert on this case, but I'm more knowledgeable than 90-some% of the people that are interested in it, is I don't believe that is a valid or a just conclusion to this.
But I will just say this, Mark, to you and John. You guys can disagree with me on any matter, on anything. But you know what? That's the world we live in. People disagree and they agree. John agrees probably, and all his fan base agrees 100%. They don't like my guts. They hate my guts. They hate me because I'm the most, hated guy that says Michigan is one of the worst teams in college football. I mean, truth
See,
be
this
told.
is where you and Burks are in the same boat, because you guys have this complex where you have to be the most hated Ohio State fan. Burks wants to be he wants to be the most hated Michigan fan. You want to be the most hated. Why? Why is that so important to you?
Because some people don't find my opinions and my thoughts really justifiable.
Well, what if they did? What if suddenly tomorrow everyone woke up and they had an epiphany that Caden is the most brilliant college football mind I've ever heard, and suddenly everyone agreed with you? Would you enjoy that? Would you like that? Or would you demand to be the most hated?
I'd rather be hated, honestly, until I'm dead. And Mark, honestly, if someone said they had an epiphany because they said that they thought I was correct, I think that they were lying, because you basically told everybody to not dislike me on social media. Because I'll tell you what.
I agreed with half of what you said, though. Like, I agreed with the Jim Harbaugh lifetime ban. I agree mostly that Sharon Moore is getting a suspension. We disagree on the length. I'm thinking 2 to 4 games, especially since it's now the whole week. It's not like it was in 2023 where Harbaugh got to just sit at home for the Saturday, but then he was coaching still during the week. So you have to remember that. That has changed since 2023. So a 5-game suspension that I might have predicted in 2023, I'm not going to predict now, given how much larger of an impact it is. Because now it's about program management and building through almost half of the season. This isn't just a Saturday sit at home on your couch situation anymore.
No, and I can agree with you on that level there. But also, You have to understand, the rules of the NCAA have changed from, I preached to Mark over the last month, college football should be the way, and should be allowing players with the mentality, with the hard hittingness of Terrell Suggs, James Harrison, Ray Lewis to come back and play the game.
Here. All right, Kate.
No, I'm just saying.
Here. We do appreciate the call.
I'm just saying, Mark. I'm just saying to John specifically.
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
you have a great day. Okay. I simply want anyone who calls in to be able to back up their accusation with some reason, some facts, whether that's football related on the field or a situation like this. That's all I ask for.
Yeah. And look, I know that we have, what's interesting is that there are Buckeyes who we may disagree on, including yourself, right? We may disagree on some of the points about Connor Stallions and some of the points about what X, Y, and Z. But then you look at the chat, you look at the Buckeyes that watch the show and love the show. And even Doreen, who's in chat here right now, is one of our moderators. And so we do get along with Buckeyes. We do get along. I mean, especially you and me, right? So we go back 4 or 5 years now. So like, it's possible. I just think like there's going to be disagreements on some stuff. I don't think there's any need for name calling. I don't think there's any need for putting someone on blast for having a reasonable opinion. But there you go. So we had a nice little chat there.
Well, thanks for showing up, John.
Absolutely. And I'll see some of you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern for Michigan Wolverines Live. We'll be back.
Thanks, John. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Okay. We started this show by starting with the topic of the preseason coaches top 25. I'm guessing we're going to get back to that here. We got DeReal MVP showing up. DeReal, what's going on today?
Nothing much, Mark. How about you?
I am doing just fine. Give me 2 seconds here because I want to acknowledge these super chats before they get away from us. They are Michigan related. So we've got Michigander 1212. This dude, meaning Caden, is such a crybaby, so delusional. And then we have Dave, Minnesota Dave, stopping by. Who do you think will have a bigger punishment, Michigan or Central Michigan? Historically, the NCAA has nailed the smaller school over the blue blood. Well, based on what games were affected and who initiated and who was on staff and what's already been handed down, I don't think there's any comparison between how much each one of these two schools was involved and will have to pay the consequences. All right, DeReal, it's all yours.
Well, before I just want to comment a little bit about the Michigan thing. I did find it interesting during media days. Ryan Clark said, the head of the College Football Playoff Commission, did say that it is possible a trophy is removed. I did find that interesting. I believe he is aware of the circumstances around and which team that would apply to. I'm not going to say what team it is because that'd be rude and disrespectful, but I did find that interesting. Just as a complete hypothetical, Mark, that if the NCAA did vacate wins and did unrecognize a trophy, that they would, of course, follow suit. That's just, just interesting, a little nugget to me that he would say that on public discourse. But, Mark, this is the year 2025, not the year 2023. So we've got actual teams playing games and rankings, and that's why we're all here, correct?
We are.
Okay, so let's talk about the top 25. I assume that's what we're supposed to talk about today?
Yeah, we're going to give it a look right now.
Okay, so the first thing I noticed when looking at this is there's a lot of debate between the Texas, Penn State as the 1-2. I'm surprised Ohio State was able to slide into that 2 spot. Do you think that is literally just because Ohio State owns Penn State over the last decade, and they're just grandfathered into being better than them?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to be addressed when we look at these preseason polls, and I have heard this from the horse's mouth, meaning the actual participants in these polls, that some of them are simply making a list of who they believe are the 25 best football teams in America. Don't look at a schedule. Don't think about anything. Don't think about a freshman quarterback who may get better and better and better and be a much different player in November. None of that. Just these are the 25 best teams in America in order. There are other voters in this process who try to predict the season. They may think that their number 10 team in the country is better than their number 4 team in the country, but they just play a brutal schedule. So they're going to lose a game or two more, and they're adjusting for that, which I think is a faulty way to do it. But I have discovered from talking to AP voters, and here we have the coaches poll, which the level of coaches involvement we know is sporadic at best. And that's how people approach it. So back to your conclusion on the Ohio State placing at 2 and Penn State at 3. I think this is a lack of respect for James Franklin, Drew Aller, and the Penn State program. And most people want to be convinced. They want to see it first before they actually will believe it. And the game's in Columbus between the two teams.
Correct. I did find it interesting as a small, everybody says that there's SEC bias on everything, Mark. I did find it interesting that there's more people who believe the Big Ten has the best team in the country than the SEC does. Just a little, small little detail out there that goes against this whole grand conspiracy theory of SEC bias. But, one of the things you look at, Mark, is who's in the top 10 that's going to fall completely out. And just looking at the list initially, my gut reaction is telling me it's going to be the Oregon Ducks. I just don't fully believe in them as much as the rest of the teams on this list.
Agreed. My selections would be, I'd have to go to the LSU schedule, which of course starts with Clemson. So we have a 1-2 matchup in week 1. We have a 5-10 matchup in week 1. We have a 6-9 matchup in week 1. And we will see how those teams are ranked after. If they perform well and lose, we know that LSU is going to keep its spot at 9. If they lose at Clemson, 30-28, great game. But if they lose convincingly, not even a blowout, but just get handled, then that will be a damaging blow to their ranking. So I would say, based on schedule and that one very difficult non-conference game that LSU has to deal with, and assuming off the top of my head that the rest of their conference schedule is tougher than Oregon's, that I would slide LSU first, then Oregon, then Miami.
Yeah, I have Oregon and LSU flipped, but you've got excellent reasoning. It's Florida, Ole Miss, South Carolina, A&M, Alabama is their ranked teams they play in conference this year.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm having trouble because I'm trying to formulate my own predictions, Mark. And I hate to say it because it'll make everybody's heads explode. But with the difficulty of LSU's schedule specifically, if they beat Clemson week 1, okay, and they go 9-3, and Clemson goes 10-2, they both miss the conference title game. Who gets the final spot in that scenario?
LSU should be in the playoff.
I agree with you, but I think a lot of people are going to be unhappy by that.
Again, you had LSU winning the game on the road at Clemson, 9-3 overall, Clemson 10-2. Neither team wins their conference.
Correct.
Yes. LSU, slam dunk, much more difficult schedule, won the head-to-head. Absolutely. They're in. They should be.
I know, Mark, but we've got 10 years of data that suggests the team with the record always gets in unless you got a quarterback injury.
I would check that off and move on.
Okay.
Wouldn't even consider it. What does the rest of Clemson's schedule look like?
They actually got a fairly decent schedule this year in terms of the ACC. They play Georgia Tech, Syracuse, SMU, Duke, Louisville, Florida State. No, it's not as good, obviously, but it could be much worse. They could be playing Virginia's, Pitt's, Wake Forest level teams. They're playing most of the top to middle teams in the ACC this year.
If we take out the opening game, Clemson's most difficult game most likely is going to be South Carolina.
Correct. Them, Louisville, or Louisville, SMU, and Georgia Tech all put in the same tier.
Okay, I will too, with Georgia Tech hanging on to the bottom of that tier. So
right.
I'll agree with you there. So there's 4 teams that probably will be somewhere between 10 and 30 in the country when it's all said and done. Read off LSU's most difficult games in order, in conference, just the ones that matter to any degree.
Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Florida, Texas A&M.
Yeah, much tougher. Yeah.
I'm not including Oklahoma in this because I just flatly don't believe in them, by the way.
Well, I would include Oklahoma as much as I would include Georgia Tech and maybe even more.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, the no comparison between the two schedules.
Absolutely. But with the 9-3 LSU team, it's going to be SEC bias all the way, Mark. It's always a conspiracy theory against the SEC. Something else I noticed when looking at the rankings is the gap between Arizona State in the Big 12 and Kansas State is pretty massive. Arizona State's ranked 11, Kansas State is ranked 20th. I don't believe there is that much separation within the Big 12. I understand Arizona State's got 11 of their 12 defensive players returning, I believe, this season, and they're supposed to be pretty good, but I just cannot believe in any Big 12 team being that much better in any year going forward than the rest of their conference.
The upper echelon of the Big 12 is going to live in the bottom 10 spots of these rankings. And we may see weeks in which it looks very close to what we're seeing right there. 20, 22, 23, 24, Big 12. I understand what you're saying. I agree with you in principle, but I don't think that it's that wide of a gap. I don't know that it really plays out as much as it would appear on paper, meaning we could have a truly close Big 12 race, and in the championship game, Arizona State beats Kansas State, and they started the game at 14-17 in the polls, and then they wind up 11-20. Like I understand what you're saying, and I generally agree, but yeah, I don't see it quite the same way.
No, that's very fair and valid. The Big 12 team
I'm sorry, and we're looking at between 17 and 20. It's a pretty tight run of teams there. Florida 498 down to Kansas State 438. Yeah, it would be interesting. What they should do when they send this out is they should put the highest and lowest ranking next to each team, the individual highest and lowest ranking. That's what I would like to see how consistently the voters, how consistently they believe in these teams, or is there a major discrepancy in how they view these teams individually?
Well, I bet you a lot of people on these teams like Florida, Michigan, South Carolina, these teams where some people don't fully believe in them, is going to have a much larger disparity than your Alabamas, your Texas A&Ms, even, and Ole Misses. That would be my gut inclination on this.
Yes, I would think that probably the highest ranked team that's not included in a top 25 may be Illinois.
Yeah, I can see that. I can absolutely see that.
I think that there are people out there that don't believe in Illinois backing up last season, which means there are people that are voting Illinois as a top 10 team. I don't see it myself.
No, but if they want to make the playoffs this year, they basically have to be a top 10 team. Because Alabama missed the playoffs at number 11 last year. So, to me, the dark horse mark to win the Big 12 nobody's talked about all year is Baylor. They have a pretty easy Big 12 schedule in comparison to the rest of the Big 12, and they're not on the list. So I think they're just a perfect dark horse team to win the Big 12 in general. For the group of five, why do we always have to rank Boise State or somebody else? I mean, I know it'll never change, but the group of five doesn't belong on the list. There's plenty of other teams that are better than them. The odds of Boise State or any group of five team backing up they did from last year to this year is pretty minimalistic. So,
and that goes back to my original point about how people approach these rankings and how a large portion of them are predicting. They are trying to project where they should finish, where they will finish, and look at schedules and think, well, Boise State's Boise State. Probably very little research is put into Boise State, or for a lot of these people, any of these teams. And they just figure, yes, one group of five team, and this will manifest itself throughout the season. Whatever group of five team, even if Boise State falters, elevates with a tremendous record, they just have to be somewhere around 20. It's just almost a unwritten rule that the best group of five team has to be about 20th in the country.
Correct. And Mark, Dark, I know you like the group of five race. Team nobody's talked about to be the group of five playoff team, okay? They had a good season last year. They got a relatively easier schedule, but they play some good non-conference out of five group of five teams. Toledo. Mark, Toledo's going to the playoffs this year, Mark, okay?
Nice. I'll have to look into that. Look
Yeah,
at Toledo here. Do you know what their non-conference games are offhand?
yeah, they play Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and Washington State.
Oh. So when you say that they're playing winnable games.
Yes. They're going to
Okay.
go 12-0 in my opinion. And they're going to be forced, the committee's going to be forced to pick them into the playoffs.
Interesting. Toledo.
Yeah.
The Rockets. I definitely believe in their coach. He's a good one.
Yeah, and they beat Mississippi State last year. They finished second in the MAC. I've heard they've got most of the returning production back now. I don't know if that's true. I haven't looked that much deep into it, but I like Toledo this year.
Who is your most likely playoff team that is not in the preseason top 25?
For out of these teams, I'd go with Louisville just because they're the best of the ACC teams. And to me, the gap between Louisville, Miami, Clemson, SMU is not as big as everyone's making out to be. I just completely don't understand the Clemson love affair that everyone's having. Dabo has been on a steady decline since Trevor Lawrence has left the building. I do not believe in Cade Klubnik as a good to great quarterback. Their season last year was a paper tiger season. I'll say it right here because I believe it. Louisville's got the best coach quarterback combination in the entire ACC. I would take them over literally anybody else.
Yes, I agree. Well, I'm not taking them over Clemson, but I'll take them over everyone else.
Yeah, I believe in Miller Moss, what he did at USC, much more than what Cade Klubnik has done for Clemson.
I can't take it to that extreme to real.
I
do like Klubnik. I think he's a really good quarterback. And anybody who goes back and watches Klubnik against Texas, he and those three receivers, Brian Wesco and TJ Moore and Antonio Williams, they single-handedly, between the four of them, kept Clemson somewhat in the game.
I understand, but that's just one game. That is just one game
against one of the best defenses in the country. And I am a believer in Cade Klubnik. I am swinging back and forth on Clemson because I tend to go along with what you're saying in that they were ragged on defense last year. They were not a vintage Clemson defense by any stretch. Teams ran the ball down their throats, and they did not play a decent schedule. When they did play a decent team, they got hammered or controlled. And yeah, the best team they beat last year was SMU on a miracle field goal at the gun. They were outplayed in the fourth quarter, and they're bringing this team back. And people seem to be high on that they're bringing back a team that lost 4 games and they're suddenly going to be a national championship contender. And they have no running backs. We just did a preview with our buddy Jason Priester, posted all the videos on the Clemson channel, and they are thin at running back. Most likely they're going to play a true freshman at running back. He's a close to 5-star, and they're going to rely on that. Yeah, their defense is going to have to be so much better than it was last year, but people are counting on them scoring a ton of points with Klubnik, Garrett Riley running the offense. The line's supposed to be better than it's been in a long, long time, and the receivers are Clemson good. Finally, after about a 5-year walk through the wilderness at wide receiver.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think they could be better last year. I just think they're not as good as everybody's saying, and I think their schedule is harder than most people are projecting it to be. So I think with that combination, I don't even have them making the playoffs, Mark, just to be honest with you. I have LSU taking the 9-3 spot over Clemson at 10-2, and I have Clemson the first team out.
So David Greenshield in particular and others have been asking for my final predictions and conference championship predictions and playoff predictions. And I don't know how I'm going to handle that because what I was planning on doing is pulling together a live stream early the week of week 0 and just sitting here for as long as it would take and going through every game week 0 on through the entire schedule, see where we land, and then select the playoff teams, play the playoff, and that will be my final run of predictions. I'm looking at these other receiving votes, and this is to my point right here. Nebraska is not one of the 25 best teams in America. And 19 people, well, not necessarily 19 people, but accumulation of 19 votes, point totals went their way. So they had a couple handfuls of people place them in the final 5 spots, probably of the top 25.
Shout out to the 8 people who picked Florida State to be in the top 25. God bless those people. just God bless them. Do they believe the Earth is flat as well and the moon is made of cheese? And there is no indication Florida State should be a top 25 team after what happened last year.
Yeah. They have to be better. They will be better. They can't be worse. Their schedule, well, they got Alabama and Florida outside the conference. And maybe I'm veering off into this, looking at the schedule business and making a projection based on the schedule. Arkansas and Nebraska, that's kind of interesting to me that there are 14 individuals out there that think Arkansas is going to finish ranked or are one of the 25 best teams in the country.
Yeah, shout out to also the one person who picked Buffalo for some reason. I mean, I don't even know why. Who does Buffalo even have as a player, Mark? Do you know anybody who played for Buffalo?
Oh, man. I do not. I'm going to cheat and look at their quarterback just to see if I've heard of him. I'm guessing that I have. If he's a returning starter, then I know I have, but can I come up with him off the top of my head? No.
Yeah, I tell you, like some of these teams actually make most of these teams you have some argument for. Even though I disagree with them, like Iowa, Oklahoma, Missouri.
Buffalo's starting quarterback is former UConn quarterback, also former Penn State backup, Taquan Roberson, who, unless he has improved significantly, was a disaster every time I ever saw the guy play. But he is the starting quarterback at Buffalo. They opened the season on a Thursday night at Minnesota. So most likely they lose that game, but they could win that game. It's possible.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the Big Ten has always had these one game every year where they lose to a MAC level team or something like that out of the blue. So maybe it is Buffalo, but
they certainly do.
Anyway, Mark, it's good talking to you as always. Finally, we got some football this month. Can't wait for the season to start.
Thanks, DeReal. Appreciate you being here. All right, DeReal MVP, and let's get to our super chats coming in here. We do appreciate you as well. We've got another one coming in from Michigander 1212. There is no Oklahoma, which is shocking. What does that say about what coaches think about John Mateer? So it is my guess, complete guess here, but logical guess, that there are more coaches involved in the preseason rankings than from week to week during the season. That they may take a few minutes and having been somewhat involved, not right there involved in the process, but talking to people who were responsible for submitting a coach's, I can talk about 3 different coaches, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State, when I was covering those teams, and would talk to the sports information department staffers, and they would talk to me about how those head coaches at those schools approached their votes. And by and large, these coaches care about 3 or 4 teams in the top 25. Their rival, who they're playing that week, maybe randomly somebody else because they're from their coaching tree or something. So they may say, put them at 4, put them at 14, and put them, make sure they're not in the top 25. I don't care that they are 9-2, I don't want them in the top 25. Fill out the rest the way you want to. Now, again, for the first initial poll, since they've had an opportunity to prepare this, maybe more coaches are involved in the first poll. But Oklahoma, yes. Oklahoma is receiving a ton of love from a number of publications and myself. And so I do expect Oklahoma, despite a brutal schedule, to finish ranked. And we're going to get to that in just a second. All right, Michigander 1212, appreciate you being here. There should be a requirement for G5 schools to make the playoffs, like beat at least one Power 4 school and win 12 plus games. Okay, so your thought, it appears that Group of 5 schools are not eliminated from participating, but they should not be guaranteed a spot. They would have to win the 12 plus games. So basically, you're talking about as a conference champion, they can lose one game and that's it. And then they would have to go out and schedule Power 4 teams in their non-conference schedule, which they all do. Actually, the toughest non-conference schedules in the nation are from Group of 5 teams. And Boise State plays Oklahoma State. Barely can we qualify them at this point as a Power 4 team. But I don't agree with you necessarily, but I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think it's horrible. I do understand we know that there's a huge gap between Power 4 play and Group of 5 play, and trying to find some legitimacy in the performance of a team from the Group of 5, not to just say, as we would have seen 2 years ago, technically 2 years ago, had there been a 12-team playoff, we would have had the likes of Liberty. I know they were 13-0, but Liberty would have been playing in the playoff. They had not beaten one decent team the whole season. And then, of course, they showed up at the Fiesta Bowl and got completely trounced by 7 touchdowns. All right. So the point I wanted to get to as well is let's look at the preseason coaches poll last year. This is 2024. Go all the way to the left. You see on August 5th, the preseason poll released. Let's see where these teams landed. Georgia began the season number 1. They finished 5 or 6. Ohio State number 2, preseason, the national champion. Oregon number 3, finished as the only undefeated team in college football in the regular season, and regular season number 1. So Texas at 4, obviously went to the college football playoff semifinal and almost won the SEC. So the first 4 picks, they weren't spot on, but we can't fault in any way those first 4 selections by the coaches poll. Bama at 5 obviously did not live up to a number 5 ranking, which is generally like an 11-2 kind of season, or getting to the semifinals of the college football playoff in that range. Ole Miss at 6, somewhat underachieved. Based on that ranking, they finished at 10-3. Notre Dame at number 7, of course, went to the national championship game, so that was somewhat of a slight, but not by much. That was generally a good call. Now, Michigan at 8, and with 1 first-place vote, and Michigan lost 5 games. So that was the first big miss. Penn State at 9, achieved a little bit better than that, and Florida State at 10 was the enormous miss of everyone. I picked Florida State to go, I believe, 9-3 was my pick on Florida State. I believe I might have said 8-4. So 2 misses out of the top 10, 2 teams that finished unranked. That's actually a decent year out of the coaches there. Missouri at 11 did not finish quite there, but that's not a bad call. They went 10-3. LSU at 12 again did not finish that high, but still 9-4, not that far off. Utah at 13 was a huge miss. They finished 5-7. They only won 2 games in conference play. Clemson at 14, good call there. That's pretty much spot on. Tennessee at 15, a little bit higher than that, but pretty spot on. Oklahoma was a huge miss with 7 losses. Kansas State finished 9-4 at number 17, so they were within range. Oklahoma State, a huge miss by most of us, coming off a Big 12 championship game appearance with their starting quarterback, Alan Bowman, the rushing champion, Ollie Gordon, and 21 starters back. Nobody foresaw a complete collapse out of Oklahoma State. Miami finished right about 19 in the country. Texas A&M at 20. They did not finish in the top 25, but they were a top 25 type team at 8-5. Arizona imploded 2-7 in the Big 12. NC State had a rough year at 6-7. USC did not finish ranked at 7-6, but I don't consider that to be much of a miss. Number 23 team in the country, and USC against a very difficult schedule went 7-6. So USC might have been the 23rd best team in the country. Kansas at 24, of course, lost 7 games, and Iowa did not finish ranked at 8-5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the coaches poll hit 14 out of 25 from last season. All right, folks in the chat, let's just fall in line, trash talk about football all you'd like, but let's stay away from anything that is not appropriate. All right, folks, that about does it for me and my analysis of the top 25. Let's take it another go here, and I'll pretty much just run down who I think is ranked too high, too low, or just right. And when I say too high or too low, I don't mean exactly, because is Texas ranked too high? Well, of course they're not ranked. They could not be ranked too low. Anyway, are they ranked too high? Well, if you do not believe they're going to win the national championship, then they're ranked too high. But I believe that they're seriously in the conversation for a national championship. So I do not believe that Texas is too high. They should be in the top 5. So should Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia. I believe in the top 6 teams in these rankings generally finishing where they're placed in some order. Oregon is the first team on this list that I do not believe has a legitimate chance to win the national championship. The other 6 teams would not surprise me. Any one of those 6 teams won the national championship this year. Now, after Oregon, do I believe anybody else is capable of winning the national championship? Yes. Alabama. I think Alabama certainly could win a national championship. And I believe that LSU, South Carolina, and Michigan could mature, get better, be prepared come playoff time to compete for a national championship. as stated, I think that Oregon and LSU are the overrated teams. Not that they aren't the 7th and 9th best teams in the country. So it's not that I wouldn't rank them nearly as high. I just don't think they're going to place quite that high. Off the top of my head, I would rank these teams: Penn State 1, Texas 2, Ohio State 3, Notre Dame 4, Clemson 5, Georgia 6, Alabama 7, LSU 8, Oregon 9, Michigan 10, Arizona State 11, South Carolina 12, Miami 12, South Carolina 13, Ole Miss 14, Florida 15, Kansas State 16. I like Texas A&M up there, 17. And it's a bit of a mess after that. I do think that Oklahoma is one of the 25 best teams in the country. And I believe that Missouri, Louisville, Utah, I know people like Baylor. I'm not as high on Baylor. Auburn, Baylor week 1. 2 unranked teams, but very important. Very important game for both of those schools. Auburn's got to start winning some football games. Of course, Hugh Freeze somewhat on the hot seat there. 6-7, 5-7, third season at Auburn, makes a ton of money, ton of resources. His recruiting has been good. They pump a ton of NIL into that program. Auburn's got to do something this year. They just have to. All right, folks, want to let you know that I believe I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger on this call. Starting the week of week 0, that Monday night, which I believe is August 18th, we're going to move this show to 10 Eastern, 10 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, starting the week of week 0. We're going live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 10 Eastern time. So that means Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 10 Eastern. That means Thursday, Friday, Saturday after football. Now, I'm going to make a judgment call if we've got a Thursday night game with Colorado State and Hawaii playing till 3 in the morning. No. We're not doing that, but we will be here at right after the primetime game. Whatever the primetime game is, we'll be here after the primetime game. Or if the primetime game is a 5-touchdown game in the fourth quarter, we will be here sooner. So you're just going to have to stay locked in, but approximately 10 Eastern, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, starting the week of week 0. And we, of course, will have the call-in lines humming. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. You will see us on Tuesday at 4, the Iowa show at 5, and as you see on the bottom of the screen, the Big Ten Live show is Tuesday at 6 Eastern, right here at the Voice of College Football.